Living in Sunnyside Estates wasn't exactly my dream move, but its location shaved 30 minutes off my commute, and the nearby walking trails were perfect for Maverick, my service dog. Maverick is a stunning golden retriever, calm and alert, trained to help me manage PTSD from my military deployment overseas. He's impeccably behaved, always in his service vest when we're out, and never breaks protocol. I know the Americans with Disabilities Act inside and out. When your independence relies on a service animal, you learn it. But I never thought I'd have to quote federal law to the HOA president the first time I met Karen Whitfield. She had a clipboard clutched to her chest and a skull carved into her face like it had been chiseled there. She introduced herself as the HOA president with a tone that suggested I should salute. "I don't recall approving a dog in this neighborhood," she said, glaring down at Maverick, who sat silently at my side, the picture of discipline. I calmly explained that Maverick wasn't a pet, he was a trained service animal, and under federal law, he was exempt from the HOA's pet restrictions. Karen muttered something about people always finding loopholes and stormed off. I should have taken that as a sign of what was coming. Over the next few weeks, I received a series of petty violation notices. My grass was an inch too tall, my mailbox wasn't the approved shade of black, and my trash can had been visible for 45 minutes after pickup. Each notice was signed in Karen's dramatic cursive, punctuated with a passive-aggressive smiley face. I complied with all of it to avoid conflict, but I sensed this was more personal than procedural. Then came the HOA meeting. Karen unveiled a new proposed rule: all animals, including service dogs, had to be registered with the HOA and wear board-approved identification tags. I raised my hand and pointed out that such a rule conflicted with the ADA. Karen didn't even let me finish. "Federal laws don't override our community standards," she snapped. A few neighbors looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. After the meeting, Karen pulled me aside. "If you want to be difficult," she said, low and threatening, "I can be difficult too." Her breath was laced with stale coffee and control issues. That weekend, I was enjoying a quiet morning on my front porch, Maverick resting beside me while I read the paper. A shadow crept across the lawn. Karen, in her usual khakis and polo, was holding a spray bottle. "Your dog is violating the new pet rule," she announced loudly. "He doesn't have approved HOA identification." I reminded her again calmly that Maverick was a service animal, and the HOA had no authority to impose such a requirement. Also, the rule hadn't even passed yet. Her face turned scarlet. "I'm tired of you military types thinking you're above the rules," she hissed, stepping onto my property. "If you won't comply, I will handle it myself." Before I could react, she sprayed Maverick in the face. He yelped and stumbled back, pawing at his eyes in distress. I jumped to shield him and demanded to know what was in the bottle. "Just a vinegar water mix," she said with a smirk. "It won't hurt him. Maybe now he'll learn to respect authority." Fury surged through me, but I kept calm. I carried Maverick inside, rinsed his eyes carefully, and made sure he was okay. The solution had caused irritation but no permanent damage. Once he was resting comfortably, I dialed 911. "What's your emergency?" the dispatcher asked. I reported the assault on my service dog, making it clear this was a federal crime. The dispatcher confirmed that officers were en route. About 20 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. I explained everything, showed them Maverick's certification and training documents, and pointed across the street to Karen's house. One officer stayed to take my statement while the other went to speak with her. From my window, I watched her flail her arms dramatically while the officer remained unmoved. When both returned, they confirmed Karen had admitted to spraying Maverick but claimed she was enforcing the rules. They told her that interfering with a service animal is a federal offense under the ADA and could lead to significant penalties. Additionally, her actions were considered animal cruelty under state law. They were placing her under arrest and asked if I'd like to press charges. I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Karen was led away in handcuffs, shrieking that I'd regret this and that the neighborhood would turn against me. Neighbors had gathered outside, watching. I overheard one whisper, "She finally crossed the line." Afterward, a neighbor approached me. "I'm sorry," she said. "We've all been afraid of her for too long." She looked down at Maverick, who was once again calm and steady, his ordeal behind him. The legal process moved surprisingly fast. Karen faced charges for interfering with a service animal, animal cruelty, and harassment. At her arraignment, she arrived in designer clothes beside an expensive-looking lawyer. But no outfit could fix the facts. The evidence was solid. The judge, unimpressed, sternly emphasized that no community rule can override federal disability protections. While awaiting trial, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. I showed up with Maverick by my side. This time, the room was packed. The vice president called for a vote of no confidence in Karen's leadership, citing the legal risks she'd created for all of us. The vote was unanimous. Karen was officially removed from the board. Someone had already replaced her nameplate. In court, Karen eventually pleaded guilty to a reduced charge to avoid a heavier sentence. The judge gave her 30 days in county jail, a $5,000 fine, 200 hours of community service at an animal shelter, and mandatory disability rights education. As her sentence was read, Karen looked stunned. "I was just enforcing the rules," she protested weakly. The judge leaned forward. "The most important rule, Ms. Whitfield, is to respect the law of the land, especially when it protects people with disabilities and their service animals." As she was led away, she locked eyes with me briefly. The arrogance she once wore like a badge was gone. Her mouth moved. "I think," she said, "this isn't over." But we both knew it was. Maverick sat beside me, composed and focused, every inch the professional he was trained to be. I reached down and scratched behind his ears. He leaned into my hand, the quiet strength of our bond a constant through every trial. And together, we had weathered the storm and stood taller because of it.